All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're looking at Shakespeare's Richard II.
Richard II, yes.
And specifically, Act 1, Scene 1.
Absolutely.
So if you haven't already, I would highly encourage everyone to at least go and skim it.
Yeah.
It's not super long, and if you want to follow along with us, that would be even better.
Absolutely.
So what are we looking at here?
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a room where, like, the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, everyone's sort of holding their breath, waiting for something to happen?
Definitely.
That's the vibe we're dealing with in Act 1, Scene 1 of Richard II.
Oh, wow.
It's London, late 1300s.
Yeah.
King Richard II is holding court, but it's not exactly a party atmosphere.
Okay.
You've got these two powerful nobles, Bolingbroke and Mowbray. They're standing before the king, and it's clear they hate each other.
So this isn't just some little disagreement. This is a big deal.
Oh, huge, absolutely.
Got it.
This scene, it's like the fuse that sets off the whole powder keg of the play. And to really unpack it, we've got a ton of great sources to dive into.
Excellent.
I got my own notes on Richard II himself,
Yeah.
kind of getting into his head, understanding his motivations.
Cool.
We've got this incredible detailed analysis of Act 1, Scene 1 that breaks down all the nuances.
Nice.
We'll be looking at the full text of the scene, of course, so we can really savor the language.
Love it.
And then to give us that extra historical oomph, we'll be bringing in some insights from the Britannica articles on things like the 100 Years' War
So interesting.
and the political craziness of Richard's reign.
Cool. So really painting the full picture here
Exactly.
for our listeners.
We want you to really grasp not just what happened, but why it matters.
Got it.
So our mission is to get to the heart of this conflict between Bolingbroke and Mowbray.
Okay.
See how King Richard tries to handle it, and trust me, he doesn't exactly ace it.
Oh.
And ultimately understand what all this tells us about power, loyalty, justice in this really turbulent period of English history.
Got it. So how does it all kick off?
Well, the scene opens with King Richard making a grand entrance,
Right.
with John of Gaunt, who's his uncle, and a bunch of other nobles.
So like a very formal royal entrance.
Oh, absolutely. It's all pomp and circumstance.
Nice.
And right away, Shakespeare uses this really clever trick with Richard's language.
Ooh. I love when he does that.
He has him use the royal we.
Oh, yeah.
It's not I, it's we.
So he's not just speaking for himself, he's speaking for the crown.
Exactly. It's this subtle way of establishing his authority and reminding everyone who's in charge.
And what about his tone? What's that like?
Very commanding.
Hmm.
It's clear he expects to be obeyed.
That makes sense for a king.
Right. And his very first words to John of Gaunt are like a direct order.
Ooh, okay.
It's like, hast thou, according to thy oath and band, brought hither Henry Hereford, by bold son, and he's talking about Bolingbroke here, against the Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Mowbray.
So he's basically laying down the law right from the start.
Absolutely. He's setting the stage for these accusations to come out, and he's making it very clear that he's the one running the show.
So he's in control, or at least trying to be.
Right. And he very clearly states why everyone's gathered there. He wants to hear Bolingbroke and Mowbray's grievances firsthand.
Okay, so he wants to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing. His initial approach, he doesn't come across like a judge ready to slam down the gavel.
Oh, interesting. So what does he do?
He talks about wanting to purge this caller without letting blood. He even says, our doctors say this is no month to bleed.
Huh. What does that even mean?
Right. It's a bit odd, isn't it?
Definitely.
And then he urges them to forgive, conclude, and be agreed.
So is this a genuine desire for peace, or is there something else going on?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Totally.
Because the analysis we have suggests that this peace-loving act might be a bit superficial.
Really?
Yeah. Perhaps it's a way for Richard, who, isn't the strongest king, to avoid a direct confrontation.
So kind of like sweeping it under the rug?
In a way, yeah, because think about it. Public spat between these powerful nobles, it could expose cracks in Richard's authority.
Oh, I see.
And simply telling them to forget and forgive, it kind of ignores the seriousness of the accusations.
Yeah, like there's some real beef between these guys.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not something you just forget about.
Right. So it hints at this potential weakness in his leadership. Maybe he's more concerned with keeping up appearances than actually dealing with the conflict.
Okay, so he's not exactly inspiring confidence here.
Not really.
But he does lay down the law about obedience, right?
Oh, yeah. He reminds John of Gaunt about his oath and band. Like, don't forget you swore allegiance to me.
Right.
And then he makes this big show of being impartial.
Oh, how does he do that?
He says, By my scepter's awe, I make a vow such nearness to our sacred blood should nothing privilege him.
So even though Bolingbroke is his cousin, he's saying he won't play favorites.
That's what he wants everyone to believe.
But we know how things play out later, right?
Exactly.
He takes John of Gaunt's lands after his death.
Which totally contradicts what he's saying here.
Right, so it makes you question the sincerity of this whole impartiality thing.
Oh, absolutely. And it's something to keep in mind as we go forward.
So you're telling me to pay attention here.
Definitely.
Got it.
Because this disconnect between Richard's words and his actions, it's a recurring theme.
Interesting.
And it plays a huge role in his eventual downfall.
Okay, so we've got Richard setting the scene.
Right.
And then Bolingbroke steps forward.
And he does not hold back.
What does he do?
He calls Mowbray a traitor and a miscreant.
Ooh, that's harsh.
But it's not just the name-calling. It's the specifics of his accusations that are really damning.
Okay, so what does he accuse Mowbray of?
Well, first he claims that Mowbray misused funds that were meant for the king's soldiers.
Oh, wow. That's a direct challenge to Richard's authority.
Absolutely. It's like saying Mowbray's undermining the crown.
Bold move.
Yeah, but he doesn't stop there.
What else does he say?
He goes on to allege that all the treasons for these 18 years complotted and contrived in this land fetched from false Mowbray their first head in spring.
Whoa, so he's painting Mowbray as like this mastermind of disloyalty.
It's exactly. He's making him out to be the root of all evil in the kingdom for almost 2 decades.
That's a lot to throw at someone.
Oh yeah, it's a serious escalation of the conflict.
So this isn't just a personal grudge anymore. This is like a national threat.
Right, and then comes the really explosive accusation.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat.
Bolingbroke accuses Mowbray of plotting the Duke of Gloucester's death.
And remind us again who Gloucester was.
Gloucester was Richard's uncle.
Right, so this is a big deal.
Huge. The death of the king's uncle, it was a highly sensitive issue.
Definitely.
And to accuse Mowbray of orchestrating it, especially right in front of the king, that's incredibly risky.
So this isn't just some personal beef anymore. This is striking at the heart of the royal family.
Exactly, and it raises all sorts of questions about what Richard knew or didn't know.
And whether he was involved in any way.
Right, so the stakes just got way higher.
Wow. So how does Mowbray respond to all of this?
He's furious. He denies everything vehemently.
Of course.
He throws the accusations right back at Bolingbroke, calling him a slanderous coward and a villain.
Okay, so he's not going down without a fight?
Not a chance.
But he does admit to ambushing John of Gaunt, right?
Yeah, he admits to that, but
Yeah.
he's quick to point out that he confessed to it and got a pardon from the king.
So he's trying to downplay it like it's no big deal.
Exactly, like it's all water under the bridge.
Clever.
But his response to the Gloucester accusation, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, what does he say?
He says, I slew him not, but to my own disgrace neglected my sworn duty in that case.
It's pretty vague.
Right. It's like he's trying to say he wasn't directly involved in the murder, but he's not denying that he had something to do with it.
So he's leaving us all hanging.
Exactly, and that ambiguity, it's so telling.
What do you think it means?
Well, it strongly suggests that Mowbray was probably involved in Gloucester's death in some way.
Okay.
Maybe he didn't personally kill him, but he was complicit somehow.
Like he knew about it and didn't stop it?
Or maybe he even helped plan it.
Whoa, so this is getting really shady.
Yeah, at least this lingering sense of suspicion, like there's a much darker truth that Mowbray's not willing to reveal.
Got it. So we're left wondering what really happened.
Exactly.
Okay, so then we get to this really dramatic moment, the throwing down of the gauge.
Ah, yes, this is classic Shakespeare.
Can you explain to our listeners what the significance of this is?
Absolutely. So back in the day, throwing down a gauge, usually a glove, was a formal challenge to trial by combat.
Okay, so it's not just a random act of aggression.
No, it's a very specific ritual rooted in the chivalric code.
And what was the chivalric code?
Basically, it was a set of rules and ideals that governed the behavior of knights and nobles.
Okay.
Honor was at the core of it.
So throwing down the gauge, it was a way for them to defend their honor.
Exactly. If you were accused of something, you could challenge your accuser to a duel, and the winner was considered to be in the right.
Wow, so it was like putting your life on the line to prove your innocence?
Literally.
That's intense.
It was a very serious business, and for them, it was the only way to truly settle a dispute like this.
Okay, so back to the scene.
Right, so Bolingbroke throws down his gauge and calls Mowbray a pale, trembling coward.
Ooh, he's really laying it on thick.
Yeah, he's not holding back.
And Mowbray picks it up, of course.
Oh yeah, he's not going to back down from a challenge.
And what does he say?
He vows to answer Bolingbroke in any chivalrous design of knightly trial.
So he's accepting the challenge.
Absolutely. They're both ready to fight to the death over these accusations.
It really shows how important honor and reputation were to these guys.
It was everything to them more important than their own lives.
Wow. Okay, so at this point, King Richard tries to step in again.
Yeah, he's still trying to play peacemaker.
What does he say this time?
It basically repeats his earlier plea. He's like, forget, forgive, conclude, and be agreed.
But it doesn't seem like they're listening to him.
Nope. They're both too caught up in their own anger and desire for revenge.
So does this repeated but kind of useless intervention suggest that Richard's not a very strong leader?
That's certainly one interpretation. And the analysis we have definitely points to this as a weakness.
Okay.
He keeps trying to smooth things over without actually addressing the underlying problems.
So he's not really solving anything.
No, he's just delaying the inevitable.
And both Bolingbroke and Mowbray, they're insistent on having this trial by combat.
They're not budging.
What does that tell us about them and their society?
It shows how deeply ingrained this idea of trial by combat was for them.
Like it was the only acceptable way to settle things.
Exactly, and it also suggests a certain level of defiance towards the king.
So they're not afraid to stand up to him.
Not when their honor is at stake.
And there's this one moment that really highlights that.
Yeah, when Richard orders Mowbray to throw down Bolingbroke's gage.
So he's basically trying to call off the duel.
Right, and Mowbray's immediate reaction is to worry about his reputation.
What does he say?
He says, "Mine honor is my life both grow, in one take honor from me, and my life is done."
Whoa, that's a powerful statement.
It really sums up the whole mindset of the nobility at that time.
Like their honor was literally everything to them.
It was their identity, their worth, their legacy.
So Richard, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
He is.
He wants to maintain peace, but he also can't be seen as weak or indecisive.
Right, and ultimately he decides to allow the trial by combat.
So it seems like we're finally getting a resolution.
But hold on, there's a twist.
Of course there is. This is Shakespeare.
At the last minute, Richard changes his mind.
Seriously.
Yeah, he intervenes again, and instead of letting them fight, he banishes them both.
What? No way.
Yeah, it's a major turning point in the play.
Well, why does he do that?
Well, the analysis suggests a couple of possibilities.
Lay it on me.
One theory is that he's actually afraid of what might happen if the duel goes ahead.
Oh, how so?
Well, both Bolingbroke and Mowbray are incredibly powerful and influential. No matter who wins, Richard risks making a powerful enemy.
And potentially weakening his own position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by banishing them both, he's kind of trying to neutralize the threat.
That's pretty sneaky.
Yeah, it's a very Machiavellian move.
But it also seems kind of arbitrary, right?
Absolutely, and that's the other big issue with his decision.
So he's basically overturning the established rules of justice.
Right, he's showing everyone that he's willing to act on his own whims, even if it means ignoring tradition and due process.
And that's not going to go over well with the nobles?
Not at all. It further undermines his authority and sows the seeds of discontent.
So even though he thinks he's being clever, it's actually backfiring on him.
Exactly. And this whole episode, it really highlights the key themes of the play.
Like what?
Well, first, there's the whole idea of honor and loyalty.
Which is obviously huge for Bolingbroke and Mowbray.
They're both willing to die for it.
And Richard's actions or inactions, they really bring up the whole question of kingship and governance.
What does it mean to be a good king?
Right. Is it just about having power, or is there more to it?
And then there's the issue of justice and due process.
Which Richard totally throws out the window.
Yeah, he's basically saying that he's above the law.
And that's not going to fly in the long run.
Nope.
So even though it's just the first scene, it really sets the stage for everything that's to come.
Absolutely. It's the catalyst for Richard's downfall.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit and talk about the historical context.
Sounds good.
What was going on in England at this time?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, Richard's reign was marked by a lot of unrest.
Right, and the 100 Years' War was raging on.
Exactly. England and France were constantly at each other's throats.
Which probably didn't help matters.
Not at all. It created a lot of political and economic instability.
And Richard himself, he wasn't exactly a beloved ruler.
No, he was seen as weak and indecisive.
And prone to making bad decisions.
Like we saw in this very scene.
Right, so all of this is simmering in the background of the play.
It's a backdrop against which this whole drama unfolds.
And it helps us to understand why Richard's actions have such far-reaching consequences.
Precisely.
So this whole deep dive, it's really been an eye-opener.
Yeah, it makes you think about the nature of power, the importance of justice, and the consequences of bad leadership.
And it shows how even a seemingly small event can have a huge impact on the course of history.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, if you're interested in exploring this further, I highly recommend checking out the rest of Richard II.
It's a great play.
It really is, and it'll give you even more insights into this fascinating period of English history.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all of you listening, thanks for tuning in.
Until next time.
Bye for now.